Milton Davis here. It is Wednesday, October the 14th, 8 p.m., and I'm here for another reading. Hope everyone is enjoying Black Speculative Fiction Month. Just to let you guys know, if you get a chance to go to my website, we're running a special all month for the celebration of Black Speculative Fiction Month. All of our titles are 20% off. So if you get a chance, go take a look at what we got going on, and hopefully you'll find something interesting, and you'll want to purchase a book. Last week, I read a excerpt from my story from Slay, which is currently available now. Stories of the vampire noir. The book is actually has started off really strong, and we've got some great reviews. Big ups to Nicole Smith for bringing us all together and producing something like that. And like I said, last week, I read my story, an excerpt from my story, Bloodline. This week, I'm going to be reading an excerpt from a short story from another anthology that I'm in this month. And the name of that anthology is Hadithi and the State of Black Speculative Fiction. This is actually a book that I did as a co-author with Eugene Bacon. If you guys are not familiar with Eugene, you need to get familiar with her. She is a great speculative fiction author. She's out of Australia by way of Tanzania. And I got the privilege to meet her when she came to Atlanta on a book tour of the Southeast with her publisher, Meerkat Press. And they actually did a book reading at Cherish Bookstore in Decatur. And I had been given an advanced copy of the book, had a chance to read it and do a review on it. And when I showed up at the reading, the publisher asked me if I would interview Eugene. And I said, sure. I'd read the book, so I had a lot of questions about it. And we hit it off. We had a great time, kindred spirit, had a lot of good conversation. Not too long after that, her visit to America, Eugene really got very excited about Black speculative fiction. She wasn't aware that there was so much of it out there, and by coming here and checking us out, she really got a chance to see everything that was going on. And she got in contact with me one day and said, Milton, I'm writing an essay, a paper about Black speculative fiction, and I wanted to know if you would help add some words to it as far as Black speculative fiction from an indie publisher, indie writer aspect. And I said, sure. So she basically covered talking about Black speculative fiction from a mainstream standpoint, and then I added my little 2 cents in there about being a Black indie speculative fiction person. So we put that paper together, and it was great. It's a great paper. And in the process of doing that, she reached out to Luna Publishing, which is a publisher out of Scotland, and she talked to them about possibly publishing that work. And they said, hey, what if you guys would add some short stories in there to kind of give some examples of Black speculative fiction? So Eugene, she supplied 4 short stories. I supplied 3 short stories. And we put it all together and came up with Hadithi, the book that's out now. It's a great essay, great stories in it. If you've never read Eugene's work before, you do yourself a favor and do so. Her book is Claim and Timo, which is the first book I read by her, and it's an amazing book. She has such a way with prose. Some people are just natural when it comes to writing and when working with prose, and Eugene is one of those people. Has a very unique style, a unique storytelling style. So you'll see it in this book, and you'll also see it in the stories in Hadithi. I submitted 3 stories to Hadithi. 2 of the stories were previously published stories. One was Swarm, which was a steampunk story that I wrote for steampunk writers around the world, which Luna Publishing also published. And it was a story that was actually made the long list for Best Short Story in 2017 with the British Science Fiction Association. The other story that's in this book, the other story that's been previously published that's in this book is Down South. It's a story a diesel funk story that I wrote for the Diesel Funk anthology, and it's it's in here. The new story that I have in here is a story called Carnival, and a little bit about Carnival. Carnival is a steampunk story. It's not your traditional steampunk story, but I'm sorry, it's a cyberpunk story. Let me get myself straight now. It's not your traditional cyberpunk because When we think of cyberpunk, we think of Blade Runner, dark, corporate control, future, different things like that, and it's kind of been like the neuromancer type, environment. But I wanted to write something that was basically steampunk slash steampunk that was positive and fun. And so I created the world that this story takes place in. It's a world where um, everything's good. Everybody has everything they want. Life is cool. So when you don't have any worries about where you're going to live, how you're going to pay your bills, or if your healthcare insurance is going to be paid, the only other thing to do then is party. And that's what Carnival is all about. So I'm not going to beat around the bush too much longer. I'm going to read a excerpt from the story Carnival. Antoine was late. He rushed out of his Peachtree Street flat as he summoned a ride out, and the electric transport appeared moments later, scanning the young mixer for his ID and his payment. Antoine jumped in and the door closed. King Sitter Art Gallery, he said. High priority. Insufficient credit, the car replied. Antoine slammed his fist on the empty seat. Scan for rideshare options, he said. The car hummed before answering. Rideshare confirmed. Please buckle your seatbelt and thank you for choosing Ride Out for your transportation needs. Antoine buckled up and leaned back in his seat, pissed. The latest song by Prince Incorporated filled the cabin as the Ride Out lifted into aerial traffic. If his account was short, that meant Demarius's payment didn't go through. That was the second time. There wouldn't be a third. He tapped his band and the hollow screen hovered before him. Demarius Taylor, he said. The screen pulsed for a moment before Demarius appeared, a wide smile on his brown bearded face. There he is, Demarius said. Man, this shit is ice. Demarius took off his shirt, then extended his muscular arms. His tats illuminated, then danced about his body. Antoine grinned. He did good work. He tapped his band and the tats went dark. Demarius looked stunned. What the fuck? D. Where's my cred? Demarius was still staring at his torso. Yo, what? What the hell just happened? Motherfucker, where's my cred? Antoine shouted. Demarius glared at Antoine. You shut me down? You shut me down? Man, I paid your ass. My account is short the same amount you owe. You didn't pay me, caca. Quit fucking with me, Twan, Demarius said. I made the trans while you were walking out the door. I'm not arguing with you, boy. Antoine shut down the comm. The ride out rose to the 5th level and then eased down to a condo flat. The door slipped open and an Umbra woman wearing a tight-fitting kente dress and matching head wrap entered the lift and sat beside him. Piedmont District, the woman said. Thank you for choosing Ride Out, the lift responded. The door closed and the lift maneuvered into swirling traffic. Nice outfit, Antoine said. The woman turned to him and smiled. Thank you. Oh, my ancestors. Antoine Green. The woman squealed and clapped her hands. I'm sharing a lift with Twan the Don. No matter how many times it happened, Antoine was always flattered and somewhat embarrassed when people recognized him. The woman opened her purse and her phone emerged, rising over her head. Look, y'all, I'm riding a lift with Twan the Don. Antoine waved. Hello, friends of the woman in the fire dress. Keisha, the woman said. My name is Keisha Thomas. I was at your solstice set 2 years ago. It was my life. I'm glad you enjoyed it. It was hot. So what are you doing for Carnival? Keisha asked. Can't tell you, Antoine replied. All I can say is that it will be unforgettable. Better than solstice? Antoine smiled. Life ending. Piedmont District, the lift announced. Keisha opened her purse and her phone descended into it. They stared at each other in silence. Keisha finally blushed. This is my stop, she said. Yes, it is, Antoine replied. You know, my plans are flexible. Antoine laughed. Mine aren't. It was nice meeting you, Keisha. Keisha lunged at him, wrapping him in a tight hug. She smelled of mangoes. You are so ice, she said. I can't wait to see what you do for Carnival. The lift door slid open and Keisha climbed out of the lift. You have a nice day, Keisha, Antoine said. Keisha waved as the lift door closed. Antoine's phone buzzed. He looked at it and saw Keisha's number. He quickly deleted it. The phone buzzed again and Damaris's face appeared. Check your account, he said. Antoine punched up his account. The credits were there. Thank you, boy, Antoine said. Now turn my tats back on, Damaris replied. I got a date tonight. Done, Antoine said. And never call me again. Damaris's eyes went wide. Wait, bruh, you ain't gonna... Antoine cut him off, deleted his number, and blocked him. Broke ass, he whispered. The ride out descended to ground level, landing wheels dropping as it touched pavement. It rolled to a stop before a King Center art gallery. Thank you for choosing Ride Out, the car said. Have a blessed day. Antoine skipped to the center door, which slid open when it recognized his ID. Twan! Marissa jogged up to him and gave him a warm hug and a quick dap. You're late, she said as she passed him a joint. Twan took a deep toke, then coughed. Shit, where'd you get this? Rocky Mountain Hydro, Marissa answered. Only the best for the best. She grabbed his arm, then dragged him across the gym floor to the dance hall. Kai and Dame have been going at it since daybreak, she said. They killing it. She extended the joint to Antoine, and he waved it away. One drag, and he was probably going to be high the rest of the week. When he entered the dance hall, he smiled. The room shook with old school soca, and like Marissa said, Kai and Dame were killing it. He almost began dancing, but he didn't. He was bad at it. He was as bad at dancing as he was a good DJ, and he was the best DJ in the world. He watched them dance for a few minutes, his smile matching his high. Kai and Dame were money well spent. Carnival was going to be so ice. Kai was spinning when she saw him. She stopped and glared at him. Music off, she said. Where have you been? Antoine walked toward Kai, his arms outstretched for a hug. Kai hit him in the chest with the palm of her hand. Where are our costumes? She asked. Antoine dropped his arms to his side and made an exaggerated sad face. What? I've been waiting all day. Oof! Kai hit him in the chest again, this time harder. Stop playing with me, she said. We're only a month away from Carnival. We should be dancing in our costumes right now. And what about the hollows? I hope we didn't get these implants for nothing. The costumes are on their way, Antoine promised. I talked to Jabbar and Dean 2 days ago, and they're almost done. As for the hollows, let's see how they work. A smile broke like sunshine on Kai's face. Put on your skins, Antoine said. Kai skittered across the room, grabbed Dame, and dragged him into the dressing room. They returned moments later, the dancing skins clinging to every contour. Antoine lost concentration staring at Kai's perfection. Her hands went to her hips and she frowned. Twan, concentrate, she said. What? Oh yeah, lights. The lights dimmed. Antoine pulled up his shirt sleeve, revealing his touchpad on his forearm. It was old school, but Antoine liked tapping the screen in time with the music. This task, however, didn't require rhythm. He punched in the code and the hollow costumes appeared. Marissa almost dropped her joint. Ice, she exclaimed. Kai and Dame hurried to the nearest mirror. What do you think? Antoine asked. Kai shrugged. It's all right. I've seen Trinities with better. Antoine grinned. He knew Kai was going to say that. Music, he said. Kai and Dame took the cue. They danced, the hollow costumes syncing with their every move. Antoine tapped the buttons and the costumes changed colors in rhythm with the music. He saw a smile come to Kai's face. This is better, she called out. Can't win with it, though. You haven't seen it all, Antoine called back. Win, Dame said. Carnival. Kai and Dame kept dancing with angry faces. Antoine laughed. Don't worry, it'll be amazing. You just keep doing what you're doing. I'll handle the rest. He swiped his hand over the pad, sharing the code with Kai. Keep practicing. I'll be back in a few days. Where you going? Dame asked. Antoine looked at Marissa. Where am I going? Mile High, Marissa answered. Really? Ice. Mile High, he yelled out when he and Marissa walked away. He turned back to Marissa. She's in Mile High. You sure? Marissa shook her head. No, nothing's sure with her. It's the best lead I got. The note said go to Mile High. Once you get there, check into the Snowcap Hotel. She'll find you from there, if she wants to. Antoine gave Marissa a dap. I owe you. Marissa grabbed his arm. Hey, why don't I come with you? We can finish this. She patted her pants pocket. Not tonight, Antoine said. I gotta lay some tracks before and then pack. Rain check, okay? Marissa looked crestfallen. Okay, cool. Next time. Solid. Antoine summoned the ride out as he left the building. He laughed out loud as he waited. If Marissa came to his flat with weed and let those dreads out, there would be no tracks and no Mile High, at least for 3 days. He couldn't be distracted. Everything was about Carnival. He jumped into the ride out to his building. Antoine moved 2 years ago when his former flat became too small. He needed more terabytes for his business, and the bird flat didn't have the capacity. So he put in a request for a flat in the pit. He thought it would take longer than it did, but celebrity has its privileges. The ride out dropped him off and security scanned him. Seconds later, he was on the 52nd floor, bouncing to his room, the tracks floating together in his head. By the time he entered his flat, he had at least 3 tracks. He didn't make it to the bedroom, dropping everything on the floor as he went directly to his tables. His fingers flowed across the board, the music running like sweet water. It was going to be a long, beautiful night. Antoine's alarm shoved him out of bed at exactly 12:30 p.m. He lay still, his eyes opening to the graffiti mural on his ceiling. Last night's session went way too long, but he was feeling it, and he couldn't let go. And Marissa showed up anyway. There was no saying no to her, especially with those dreads loose. He sat up to look at his bed and smirked. Marissa was gone, the only sound of her the lingering smell of weed and cocoa butter. Antoine stumbled to the shower. He caught up the tube schedule to Mile High as he showered. He had 2 hours before the next ride, which was plenty of time. The jets dried him, and he called up last night's mixes, then swiped them to his waiting clients. The Crips showed up in his account seconds later. He was looking at his closet, debating on what to pack or to buy clothes when he got to Mile High when his forearm buzzed. It was Kai. What's up, beautiful? Hey, handsome. Me and Dame were up all night working on the routine. We made a few changes. Kai's image was replaced with the duo working it out, hollow costumes and all. Antoine's eyes teared up. That's amazing, he said. It could be even more amazing if I knew what to expect. At Carnival, she said. Just keep doing what you're doing, Antoine replied. It will all come together, I promise. Come on, Antoine, Kai pleaded. Give me something. Can't, Antoine said. Trust me. Kai scowled and broke contact. Antoine shook his head. He wanted to tell her. Hell, he wanted to tell everybody. But there was no such thing as a secret once a word's been spoken. Truth was, he didn't know if things would come together. He wouldn't know until he went to Mile High. Antoine arrived at the tube 10 minutes before departure with a small bag. He decided he didn't want to take time to shop, and who knew what trends in Mile High were, and he was not going to be tacky. Each herb had its own flavor, and Antoine preferred ATLs. The tube was crowded but not packed. Antoine killed 4 hours working on new mixes and tracks, ignoring the people staring at him and trying to get his attention. He was relieved when they reached Mile High. He rushed to the exit with his single bag and jumped on the escalator to the surface. He was greeted by a stunning view of the snow-capped Rockies. In 5 more years, if all went well, people would one day be able to visit them again. Antoine was looking forward to it. He put up the directions to the snow-capped hotel while paging a ride out when the signal was interrupted. A face filled the screen. A brown-skinned woman wearing hoop earrings and shades and a flowered head wrap smiled at him. Hi, Antoine. Welcome to Mile High. There's been a change in plans. I need you to go to the Environmental Transition Office. A ride out is on his way to pick you up. How do I know this is legit? Antoine asked. The woman smiled. You don't. But you've come this far. You might as well go all the way. Antoine was about to reply when the ride out appeared. Fleek, Antoine whispered as he climbed inside. Welcome to Mile High, Antoine Green. Thank you for choosing Ride Out. The ride out whisked them into the city. Antoine was disappointed he didn't have time to sightsee, but he was there for business, possibly the most important business of his life. Carnival was always important. It was the biggest audience for his skills, but this one was special. He was betting it all on this one, and he was in Mile High to make sure that it was beyond his best. The ride out climbed to high traffic as it continued through Mile High. They were passing through the main city and into the urbs. Antoine drummed his fingers on his thigh. Where exactly was this thing taking him? Right out. Confirm destination, he said. That information is confidential, the EV replied. Confidential? What the fleek do you mean confidential? The renter has requested that the location remain confidential. If you feel threatened, you can terminate the service at any time. It was decision time. If he walked away, Carnival was fleeked. If he stayed, Carnival might still be fleeked. He threw up his hands and slumped in his seat. The ride out took him to the skirts, landing before a small windowless square building. The door lifted and Antoine was blessed with frigid air. Thank you for choosing Ride Out. Have a blessed day. Antoine took his bag and stepped out the EV. He was so cold he shook. Somebody needs to turn the heat up, he shouted. The door to the square building opened and a woman he recognized from his cell emerged. She ambled up to Antoine, extending her hand. Antoine Green? She asked. The one and only. I'm Khadisha Simone. Follow me. Where are we going? Antoine asked. Outside, Khadisha replied. Antoine laughed. Yeah, right. Look, Khadisha, I didn't come all the way here to play games. Just take me to set. We got business. If you want to meet set, we have to go outside. Antoine stopped. We can't. Rangers only, remember? What kind of crack is this? I'm a ranger, Khadisha said. So is Set. And today, you are too. Khadisha entered the building. Antoine didn't move. Antoine, Khadisha called out, you're wasting time. I thought you didn't want to do that. Fleek, he said. Fleek, fleek, fleek. He picked up his bag and followed Khadisha into the building. Here. Khadisha swiped her forearm and his cell vibrated. What did you just give me? Antoine asked. Credentials. The inside of the building was sparse, a few scattered chairs with screens displaying scrolling images of the outside landscape. What is this place? Antoine asked. Excursion Travel Center, Khadisha replied. I take it by your question you're not a fan of outside. You never had a reason to be, Antoine replied. Khadisha sighed. Typical. What? Nothing. They reached the door at the end of the building. A light flashed and the door slid open. Antoine could see the landscape over Khadisha's shoulder. He tried to move his feet but couldn't. Khadisha turned around. What are you waiting for? I've never been outside, Antoine confessed. Khadisha rolled her eyes. Gods. She grabbed Antoine's arm and dragged him through the door. The cold air hit him and he shivered. Khadisha looked at him and sucked her teeth. It's warm in the EV, she said. Antoine bolted to the vehicle, opened the door, and jumped inside. Khadisha climbed beside him, taking the front seat. She pressed a button on the console and the EV came to life. Antoine watched puzzled as she grabbed the circular object in front of her. What are you doing? Driving, Khadisha replied. What? Khadisha pivoted around and chuckled. I'm driving, she said. None of that self-steering stuff on the outside. Antoine swallowed. Is that safe? Sometimes, Khadisha replied. It gets interesting when the weather gets bad. She turned around and pulled out on the road. Antoine made sure his seatbelt was fastened as he waited for the EV to lift off. 5 minutes later, and they were still rolling on the ground. Is this thing broken? He asked. We're still on the ground. It doesn't fly, Khadisha answered. We're restricted to ground level near Mile High. Airborne EVs are only used to reach remote areas. The rocking over the uneven ground made Antoine queasy. He held his stomach. Don't throw up in my ride, Khadisha said. We're almost home. They rolled over a wooden hill. As they crested, Khadisha's home came into view. The cube-shaped structure looked like someone had torn a flat from Mile High and dropped it in the forest. Antoine let out a sigh when Khadisha pulled next to the building and shut off the EV. Home, she said. Antoine followed Khadisha into the home. It was a one-room studio with a large pattern rug in the center. Antoine was expecting to see something resembling the old westerns he watched on the Pirate Channel. But Khadisha's flat was nothing unusual. She pulled up a chair from the small dining table and sat. So what do you want from me? She said. Antoine sat. I don't want anything from you, except taking me to set. When will we do that? Khadisha smiled. You're talking to her. Antoine gasped. You? You're set? Khadisha nodded. Talk fast. If I'm not convinced in 5 minutes, the answer is no. Antoine stuck out his hand into his pocket and pulled out an object. He tossed it to Khadijah. I don't need to say a word. Everything is on this. Khadijah frowned. You brought me a file on a flash drive? I didn't think these things existed on the inside. Took me a fortune to get one. Why? Antoine smiled. Because we both know there's no secrets on the cloud. Khadijah grinned. Smart man. Let's see what we got. And that is my excerpt from Carnival. If you were interested and if you want to read more, please pick up Hadithi in the State of Black Speculative Fiction. I am going to post the link for the video in my comments, which will take you right to the book, and it's available in ebook and in paperback, and I believe it's available in a hard copy as well. But once again, thank you guys for coming by and checking me out and listening to me read a little bit. I will be back next week, but I'm not sure what I'm going to read. I'll know by next week. But again, it's Black Speculative Fiction Month. Go out and support your Black Speculative Fiction authors and creators. Black Speculative Fiction is 365, but for this month we're celebrating it, and I hope you'll buy books, write reviews, and support Black Speculative Fiction. See y'all next week. Peace.